Unbelievable. Brother gets 3-bedroom apartment inheritance. Sister only receives dilapidated house. Husband calls her loser and kicks her out. You're always dragging me down. You're just an unlucky total failure. Derek roared when he learned Emily only inherited an old, crumbling house in the countryside, while her brother Victor received a luxurious apartment in the capital. Get out! I'm sick of carrying you. Her cruel husband threw her out onto the street without a penny to her name. Desperate and betrayed, Emily dragged herself to the dilapidated house her grandmother left behind. But when she stepped inside, she stood, frozen, in shock. A secret room packed with books from floor to ceiling, an ancient metal safe, and letters revealing the earth-shattering truth about the real treasure her grandmother had been hiding. One antique book was worth the entire apartment. Her brother inherited. And before we continue, write in the comments from which country you're watching the video, and also check if you're subscribed to the channel, as I share interesting life stories with you every day. Okay, let's enjoy the story. The air was thick with tension you could almost touch. Emily felt it building with every heartbeat, squeezing her chest like a vice. The notary's office was stuffy, reeking of old paper and something musty, as if only ghosts of the past lingered here. The lawyer, a gaunt man in a sharp suit, cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and began reading the will of their grandmother, Eleanor Hawthorne. Victor, Emily's older brother, lounged beside her in his chair, a smug grin plastered on his face. He'd always been Grandma's favorite, the successful businessman thriving in the city. Emily, on the other hand, seemed like a shadow next to him, quiet, unassuming, working as a librarian. She'd always felt undervalued, as if her life was just a backdrop to his dazzling one. The apartment at the specified address, I bequeath to my grandson, Victor Harlan. The lawyer's voice droned on like a sentence being handed down. Victor arched an eyebrow triumphantly, shooting Emily a fleeting, almost contemptuous glance. She fought to stay composed, though rage boiled inside. She knew Grandma adored Victor, but she'd hoped for some shred of fairness. And the house in Willowbrook Village, along with all outbuildings and the land plot, I bequeath to my granddaughter, Emily Harlan. Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Willowbrook, an old, half-ruined house she barely remembered. She'd only been there as a tiny child. This had to be a mistake, some mix-up. What was she supposed to do with this crumbling wreck? Victor burst into laughter. Well, Em, at least you got some consolation prize. You couldn't have expected Grandma to leave you anything worthwhile. What are you going to do with that junk heap? Chop firewood? Emily stayed silent, words failing her. Hurt coiled around her like a snake. She felt humiliated, betrayed. Why had Grandma done this? Did she really see her as so worthless that she'd left her only an old house in the middle of nowhere? After the reading, everything happened in a blur. Victor, pleased with himself, hurried off, tossing over his shoulder. Don't forget to sell that eyesore, or the taxes will bury you. The lawyer handed Emily the documents and keys. She stumbled out of the office in a daze. Outside, her husband Derek waited, looking grim and irritated. So, what happened? He demanded, skipping any greeting. Emily recounted the will. Derek listened, his frown deepening. When she finished, he exploded. A house in the sticks? Are you kidding me? Em, can't you do anything right for once? You're always dragging us down. An apartment in the capital that could have been our break. But you? You get trash. You're just unlucky. A total failure. Derek's words cut deeper than Victor's mockery. She'd always tried to be a good wife, supporting him through everything. But he never appreciated her, always criticizing her for being weak and not earning enough. Derek, please. She tried to defend herself, but he cut her off. Enough. I'm sick of you and your uselessness. Pack your stuff and get out. I'm done carrying you. Emily felt her world crumble. She was alone now. No money, no support, just keys to an old house in a forgotten village. Tears welled up, but she held them back. She wouldn't let him see her break. Gathering her things, Emily left the apartment they'd rented together. She had no idea where to go or what to do. One thought pounded in her head. Get as far away as possible from this betrayal, this lie. Without much hesitation, she bought a bus ticket to Willowbrook. She didn't care what awaited her in that godforsaken place. She just needed to escape, hide, start over. The ride was long and exhausting, The bus rattled over potholes. Gray landscapes blurred past the window. Emily stared out, trying to push away the dark thoughts. She remembered Grandma, her kind eyes, her soft voice. Maybe in that old house, she'd find something to help her understand herself, to carve out a new path. As the bus pulled into Willowbrook, dusk was falling. The village greeted her with silence and decay. Houses stood crooked, paint peeling. Time seemed frozen here. Emily stepped off and looked around. In the distance loomed the old house, surrounded by an overgrown garden. It looked grim and unwelcoming, gray, shabby, abandoned by all. Dragging her suitcase with effort, Emily trudged toward it. Her heart pounded with unease. She felt vulnerable and utterly alone. What awaited her in this ancient house? Could she find any meaning here? Emily slowly circled the house. From outside, it was a sad ghost of the past, forgotten and forsaken. Peeling paint, sagging shutters, a wild yard all screamed neglect. She expected the inside to match, but to her shock, it was clean and tidy, as if someone had kept it maintained, despite the outward abandonment. No sense of desolation, more like the house had been waiting for its moment. The room smelled of dust and aged wood, but not dampness. The furniture, though old, was sturdy and cared for. Yellowed photos hung on the walls and frames, capturing faces Emily had never seen. She felt the history of her family staring back at her from the depths of time. Wandering through, Emily spotted a small storage room at the far end. The door was tightly shut, almost blending into the wall. She tried to open it, but it resisted. It took force to budge the rusted lock. The creak of old hinges echoed through the house, making her jump. Behind it wasn't just storage, it was a room crammed with books. Shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, packed with volumes of all sizes and colors. Some in leather bindings with gold embossing, others in plain paper covers. The room was cleverly hidden, easily mistaken for a simple pantry. No windows, but small vents ensured airflow, preventing moisture buildup. Emily froze in the doorway, overwhelmed. She'd never known Grandma had a library, let alone one this vast. She'd always pictured her as a simple countrywoman, busy with chores. But this collection spoke of intellect, education, and a passion for knowledge. She stepped inside and ran her fingers over the spines. They felt the roughness of old leather and the smoothness of paper. The scent of aged books was intoxicating, pulling her into a world of wisdom and discovery. Emily hadn't been an avid reader, but here, in this room, an irresistible urge hit her to uncover what lay behind these covers. Some books were in English, others in foreign languages. She recognized French and German from school and was stunned to find volumes in Latin and ancient Greek. She picked up one leather-bound tome and opened it. The pages were yellowed with age, but the text remained sharp and clear. It was an antique history book, printed back in the 15th century. Emily spent hours in the library, browsing the books and wondering how Grandma had amassed such a treasure. She sensed this wasn't just a collection, it was part of her heritage, a key to understanding her family and herself. This was a secret cache Grandma had left just for her. Eager to learn more, Emily explored further. The basement was large and dry, surprising for such an old house. She descended the creaky stairs and scanned around. In a corner, something was draped under an old tarp. Curious, she approached and pulled it aside. Beneath was an ancient metal safe, massive and imposing, with a combination lock. Emily tried to open it, but no luck. She had no code and couldn't imagine what was inside. It felt like another mystery to unravel. Suddenly, an idea struck. Grandma always remembered every grandchild's and great-grandchild's birthday. It was her little quirk. Emily tried entering her own birth date. She dialed the numbers and heard a click. The safe swung open. Inside lay old letters, photos, documents, and notebooks, all neatly stacked and tied with ribbon. Emily's heart raced. She knew she'd found something profound, something that could change her life forever. She started with the letters. From Grandma's words, Emily learned her true role in the family. As the spiritual heir, Grandma explained why the apartment went to her brother. He was distant from the family and didn't value it. Documents confirmed some books held cultural and monetary worth. Among the archives were photos of little Emily with grandma closeness, trust, love. For the first time in ages, Emily's tears flowed not from hurt, but from revelation. With trembling hands, Emily unfolded the first sheet of yellowed paper. The scent of antiquity of grandma hit her, stirring a sharp ache in her chest. The handwriting was familiar, neat, with a slight rightward slant, just like she remembered from childhood, when grandma taught her letters in a thick-lined notebook. "Hello, my dear Emmy, my precious granddaughter. If you're reading this, I'm already far away, in a better place, and you're probably wondering why things turned out this way. Why Victor got the big apartment, and you the old house in the backwoods village?" Emily froze, as if struck by lightning. Grandma seemed to read her mind, knowing her pain and disappointment. Tears brimmed, but she held them, devouring every word. "Believe me, the decision wasn't easy. I thought long and hard about fairness, about securing a future for both of you. But over time, I realized fairness is relative, and true inheritance isn't money or property, it's memory, history, and roots." Grandma wrote that Victor had always been detached from family values. He chased only material gains, career, and city success. The capital apartment, in Eleanor's view, would give him the boost he craved. She foresaw he'd likely sell it, but that was his choice, his path. "But you, Emmy," Grandma continued, "you're different. You've always been closer to the earth, to nature, to history. You felt the bond with the past, with our ancestors. Remember how we read old books together? How I shared stories of our family, of those who lived here before us? I saw in you that spark, that love for our roots, which can preserve and grow our legacy." Emily swallowed the lump in her throat. She did remember those evenings, Grandma in her rocking chair by the fire, reading fairy tales and histories from antique books. The smell of old paper, the quiet rustle of pages, the warmth of Grandma's hands. In those moments, she felt safe, enveloped in love and care. Grandma went on. "The house in Willowbrook wasn't just a run-down building needing fixes. It was a symbol of their family, their story, their origins. Her ancestors had lived within these walls, born and died, loved and suffered. The house held their memory, their spirit, their energy. The library you found is my pride and my pain," Eleanor wrote. "I collected these books my whole life, guarded them carefully, dreaming they'd end up with someone who could appreciate their true value. I know you can, Emmy. You'll feel their soul. You'll grasp their meaning." In the next letter, Grandma detailed where to find documents proving the book's worth, antique catalogs, expert appraisals, letters from renowned book lovers and historians. She warned of challenges in valuing and selling, advising to seek specialists. Emily delved into the papers. Among the faded sheets, she found old deeds, wills, and gifts. One mentioned some books belonged to a noble family that owned these lands before the Revolution. Another noted several volumes were gifted by Emperor Alexander II himself. Gradually, Emily grasped the scale of her inheritance. This wasn't mere old books, it was a genuine treasure trove of immense cultural and historical value. And now, it was hers. But the photos touched her most. In an old album, she discovered snapshots of herself as little Emmy with Grandma Eleanor. There they were, strolling through the woods, picking mushrooms and berries, sitting by the river, fishing, baking pies in the kitchen, laughing and chatting. One photo showed Emily at about 5, perched on Grandma's lap, listening raptly to a fairy tale. Her face beamed with wonder and adoration. Grandma's radiated tenderness and concern. That broke Emily. She couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They streamed down her cheeks hot, heavy, washing away the resentment, disillusionment, and doubt. These weren't tears of despair, but of awakening. Awakening to the fact she wasn't alone, that she had roots, a family, a grandma who loved and believed in her. She realized Grandma hadn't just left her a house and library. She'd left her love, wisdom, faith. She'd left a key to her own heart, her own soul. Emily wiped her tears and gazed at the photos again. Now, they weren't just images. They mirrored her own story, her own destiny. She knew her place was here, in this old house, in this quiet village. Here, she'd find herself. Here, she'd discover life's meaning. Here, she'd become happy. Emily resolved firmly. She wouldn't sell the house. The idea took root in her soul, strong and unyielding, banishing doubts and fear. She'd stay in Willowbrook, breathe life into the weary walls, restore the home's former glory, not for money, not for revenge on her brother, but for herself, for that little girl in the faded photos who clung trustingly to her beloved grandma. First, Emily sought a restorer. The locals, wary at first, warmed up seeing her genuine intent to revive the forsaken house. Old Mabel, whose place stood nearest, suggested a craftsman from the next village over Jack. Hands of gold, she praised, and he treats old things with heart. Jack was taciturn but skilled. Inspecting the house, he shook his head. Lots of work, but it's solid. It'll stand. Emily sighed in relief. They agreed on price and timeline. He'd start in a week. Next came valuing the library. Emily knew she couldn't do it alone, so she turned to experts. Online, she found antique shops in the city. She sent photos of the most intriguing items. Replies came swift. One shop was hooked and offered to send an appraiser on site. The expert arrived 2 days later, a young man in glasses named Ethan. He examined the library meticulously, flipping through books, jotting notes. Emily watched, heart in her throat. Finally, Ethan looked up and smiled. "You've got a real treasure here," he said. "Some are unique specimens." Emily barely stifled a gasp. For example, this one. Ethan pointed to an antique leather-bound volume with a crest. In this condition, extremely rare. "And how much might it be worth?" Emily ventured. Ethan pondered. "Hard to say exactly, but I'd guess no less than a 3-bedroom apartment in the capital," he replied, meeting her eyes. Emily's heart hammered. One book. And how many more in the library? The realization of her inheritance's value filled her with awe and thrill. Ethan offered help with appraisal and sales auctions. Private collectors willing to pay top dollar for rarities. Emily thanked him, but asked for time to think. She hadn't decided yet. Sell all at once, piecemeal, or perhaps turn the house into a museum. That same day, Emily contacted Uncle Fred, son of Grandma's friend, mentioned in a letter. She found his number in an old address book from the safe. Uncle Fred was delighted by the call. He remembered Emily as a little girl, remembered Grandma Eleanor. "I always knew that house held something special," he said. "Your grandma was a wise woman. She always said the greatest wealth isn't money, it's memory." Emily shared about the library, the letters, her plans to restore the house. He listened intently, then offered aid. "I'm far away, but I'm here for advice," he said. "I have connections. I can introduce you to the right people, guide you on paperwork." Emily was grateful for Uncle Fred's support. She felt less alone, with an ally who shared her reverence for family history. That evening, the phone rang. It was Victor. Hey," his voice came through. "How's it going out there in the boonies?" "All good, Victor," Emily replied steadily. "How's your apartment?" "Fine," he dodged. "Look, I was thinking maybe we jumped the gun fighting over the inheritance. How about a swap? You give me the house, I give you the apartment." Emily smirked. "You know, Victor, I've thought a lot too," she said, "and I've decided I'm content. I like the house." But there's nothing there," Victor sputtered. "It's a dump." "Actually, there's something far more valuable than any apartment," Emily countered. "Memory, history, and I'm not trading that for anything." Silence hung on the line. Victor clearly hadn't expected that. "Suit yourself," he grumbled finally. "Don't come crying later that I didn't warn you." "I won't," Emily said firmly, hanging up. She glanced out the window. Night had fallen. The house felt quiet and cozy. Logs crackled in the fireplace, casting dancing shadows on the walls. A new sensation washed over Emily: inner freedom, self-assurance, pride in herself and her family. She no longer felt deprived, miserable, abandoned. She was the master of her fate, of her home, of her legacy, and she knew she'd handle whatever came next. For the first time in forever, Emily smiled, genuinely, from the heart. She rose from her chair, approached the window, and stared at the starry sky. It seemed like, among the stars, she caught Grandma Eleanor's smile, and that smile gave her strength to press on. Emily returned to the fire, picked up an antique book, and opened to the first page. She began reading. With each line, she sank deeper into the world of the past. her family's world, a world she was only now starting to comprehend and cherish. She felt an awakening interest in history, literature, art. She understood Grandma had left her not just a house and library, but a key to self-discovery, to finding her true self. And Emily was ready to turn that key. Emily would stay in Willowbrook, restore the house, study the library, learn all about her family, and she'd become happy. This was her choice, and she was certain it was right, because it came from the heart. Emily closed the book, turned off the light, and went to bed. She fell asleep fast and deep. In her dreams, Grandma smiled and whispered, "I always believed in you, Emmy. You can do anything." And Emily believed it. She really could, because now she had a purpose, and that purpose meant more than anything in the world. The next morning, Emily woke with lightness and joy. She stepped outside and breathed the fresh country air. The sun shone bright. Birds sang merrily. The world around her felt renewed and beautiful. Emily smiled. She was happy, and this was just the beginning.